You are about to walk away from the most difficult era of your existence, and no one around you will even notice it happening. That particular flavor of solitude is one of the most brutal things any person can endure, because your external world probably looks exactly the same as it always has. The same walls surround you, the same faces occupy your days, the same obligations pull at your attention. Yet something vital inside you no longer aligns with the space it used to occupy. And that is precisely why this period has felt so deeply disorienting. You are not the individual you once were, but the person you are evolving into has not yet fully materialized. Carl Jung spent his life examining this exact threshold. He called it the intermediate state. It is the gap where the old self begins to fracture before the new self has been born. And if that description resonates with where you stand right now, then what appears to be the lowest point of your life may actually be the final stretch before you quietly leave it all behind. The seasons of life that feel orderly while you inhabit them are rarely the ones that truly reshape you. The seasons that fundamentally rewire your being are the ones you cannot put into words, the ones where you float somewhere between what you were and what you are about to become. And there is simply no elegant way to describe that sensation to anyone who asks. You are not paralyzed, you are not disoriented, but you are also not positioned anywhere you can clearly define. You are occupying a space that has no label yet, and you have lingered there long enough to begin questioning whether something is fundamentally broken inside you for remaining here. Nothing is broken inside you. Jung called this the liminal zone. It is the instant when the caterpillar liquefies inside its cocoon, but has not yet formed its wings. It is a broth of pure possibility, and it represents the most exposed condition a human spirit can endure. What I want you to understand, what a part of your own shadow already knows, is that this particular stage, the one that makes absolutely no sense, is performing the most profound labor of your entire existence. Let me paint this space for you, because I suspect you will recognize its texture. The things that once felt like matters of survival no longer command your attention. Not because you have given up, but because something within you has quietly expanded beyond them. Your connections, your ambitions, even the character you spent decades constructing, they all rest slightly out of focus now. You are about to quietly conclude the most difficult season of your life. But in order to exit, you must stop trying to measure a diagonal journey with a straight ruler. The most excruciating aspect of the season you are leaving is not the turmoil. It is the sheer invisibility of the transformation. We live in a culture that worships measurable results. We have been conditioned to believe that if we cannot see our progress, we must not be moving at all. But Jung understood that the deepest movements of the human spirit occur in pitch blackness. He called this the process of enantiodromia, the moment when an internal force reaches its peak and must inevitably transform into its opposite. The pendulum of consciousness swings, and right now you are at the extreme end of that arc, about to begin the journey back. This is not a symbolic idea Jung used casually. He observed it across thousands of patients, through decades of clinical observation, across the entire breadth of mythology and ancient wisdom. The instant of greatest darkness is never the conclusion of the story. In every tradition that has ever spoken honestly about the human condition. It is the pivot point. It is the fulcrum of everything, and you are standing directly upon it right now. Currently, you are undergoing an invisible recalibration. Imagine a massive vessel turning in the middle of an ocean. From a distance, it appears to be hardly moving. It might even look like it has come to a complete stop. But below the surface, the engines are roaring, the steering mechanisms are adjusting, and the entire course of that ship is being reconfigured. If you tried to accelerate during that turn, the vessel would overturn. The stillness you feel is not inertia. It is the required pause for a complete redirection of direction. In Jungian psychology, the mind is a self-correcting system. When you have spent years living out of alignment, perhaps over-investing in your profession, your identity as a provider, or a persona built for others rather than yourself, the unconscious eventually pulls the emergency brake. It demands a reset. This is why tasks that once felt effortless now seem insurmountable. This is why you perceive a strange haze settling over your aspirations. This is why the future that once felt clear now seems hazy at the margins. Your internal operating system is being reprogrammed at a depth beyond conscious thought. You are currently in what Jung termed the nigredo phase of alchemy, the blackening. It is the stage where the outdated version of you is reduced to its foundational elements. It feels like a merciless season because your ego is fighting desperately to preserve the old framework. Your ego craves the familiar measures. It wants to know the timeline. It wants certainties. But your soul is engaged in something far more complex. It is shifting your life force, your libido, away from the external realm and toward your internal foundation. This recalibration remains invisible because it is occurring at the level of your core values and your nervous system. You are becoming structurally sound for a future you cannot yet perceive. If you were to walk into your next chapter right now, still carrying your old anxieties and your old dependency on validation, you would collapse. The weight you feel is actually a form of shielding. It is the time needed for your roots to grow deep enough to support the height of the tree you are destined to become. The risk of this phase is that you will misinterpret this recalibration as defeat. You will observe those around you who seem to be thriving and feel a rush of shame. But you must recognize they are engaged in a different endeavor. They are in a season of reaping. You are in a season of soil restoration. One cannot exist without the other, and no farmer has ever looked at dormant winter earth and called it a failure. They have always known it is preparation. If the pressure of this quiet feels like it is forming something solid beneath you, if you sense the footing being established even when you cannot see it, know that this is exactly what is happening. The hardest season ends the moment the recalibration reaches completion. You will recognize it is finished when you wake one morning, and the heaviness has dissolved, replaced by a quiet, unshakable clarity. You will not need to search for your direction. The direction will have been built into you while you were waiting. Stop trying to force the machinery to move faster. The work is being accomplished. You are being prepared. Trust the stillness. It is the sound of your existence returning to its true alignment. One of the most subtle yet powerful indicators that you are exiting the hardest season of your life is a quiet transformation in what you value. specifically whose validations you seek. Jung devoted his career to studying the persona, the social mask we wear to function in a collective world. For years, you likely spent your mental energy on the approval of others. You exchanged your time, your energy, and even your authenticity for the comfort of being understood, accepted, or admired. You molded your decisions around what would be praised, what would be safe, what would not unsettle the people whose opinions you had quietly placed above your own. In your hardest season, that currency became meaningless. The individuals you tried to satisfy did not possess the answers to your suffering. The systems you tried to conform to provided no support when you were in the depths. This was a devastating realization, but it was also absolutely necessary. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, requires a complete devaluation of external opinion. You are currently learning to operate with a new currency, internal authority. Consider the previous version of you. Every decision was filtered through a silent council of ghosts. You worried about what your parents would believe, what your peers would conclude, or how your existence would appear to observers. This created a split in your psyche. There was the person you showed to the world and the person you actually were. The hardest season was essentially the friction between those two individuals. The pain was the sound of the mask fracturing. As you exit this season, you will notice a quiet indifference growing within you. It is not that you have become callous or cynical. It is that the approval you once craved has begun to feel like the incorrect currency, like trying to spend an obsolete coin in a foreign land. You understand now that no amount of external praise can heal an internal sense of being adrift. 100 people telling you that you are on the right path cannot touch the part of you that knows it is not your truth. Jung wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." To choose what you become, you must stop asking for permission. This shift is terrifying because approval is a form of safety. When others agree with us, we feel secure within the group. When we stop seeking that agreement, we feel vulnerable. But this exposure is precisely where the golden shadow resides. Your shadow is not only made up of your shortcomings, it is also composed of your untapped potential and your unique brilliance. Parts of yourself you suppressed because they were too intense or too unconventional for those around you. By releasing the need for approval, you are finally reclaiming your golden shadow. You might notice this in small ways. You stop over-explaining your decisions. You stop feeling the urgency to justify your boundaries. When someone misunderstands you, you no longer feel the desperate need to correct their perception. You have come to understand that their view of you reflects their own internal landscape, not your reality. This is the emergence of what Jung called the transcendent function. The capacity to stand between the opposites, between the desire to belong and the desire to be free and choose freedom. Approval used to be your oxygen. Now, your oxygen is the truth. You are tuning to a different frequency, one that belongs to the version of your life you are genuinely moving toward. This new frequency does not recognize the scorecard of your old existence. It honors the integrity of your soul. If you feel solitary in this phase, understand that this is not the loneliness of rejection. It is the solitude of being self-contained. You are no longer a leak searching for a seal. You are becoming a reservoir. You are learning that the only witness your transformation truly requires is you. When you stop pursuing the wrong currency, the hardest season loosens its grip. The external world can no longer hold disapproval over you like a threat because you no longer value what it is offering. You are free. You are sovereign. You are finally coming home to yourself. There is a particular type of silence that accompanies the end of a difficult season. It is not the restful quiet of a holiday or the calm of a job well done. It is a heavy, pressurized silence. The sensation of waiting for a storm to pass, only to realize the storm has ended, yet the sun still has not appeared. Most people mistake this silence for emptiness. They interpret it as evidence that they are stuck or that the universe has forgotten them. But in the Jungian journey, this is not emptiness. It is structural reinforcement. You are in a period of load-bearing silence. Jung spoke often about the architecture of the soul. He believed that for a person to hold a greater level of consciousness or a larger life, they first had to construct the internal capacity to sustain it. If you were given everything you have been reaching for tomorrow, the clarity, the purpose, the love, the peace, without having moved through this pressurized silence, you would collapse beneath the weight of it. You would sabotage the very things you built because your interior pillars were not yet strong enough to hold the roof. The hardest season is not simply a sequence of unfortunate events. It is a weight-bearing exercise for the psyche. Consider how a skyscraper is constructed before the glass and steel reach toward the sky. Months, sometimes years are devoted to digging deep into the dark, cold earth. This phase is raw, unglamorous. To the casual observer, it looks as though nothing is happening. There is no visible progress from street level. But that deep, invisible foundation is precisely what allows the structure to withstand the wind and the gravity of its own height. Your silence is your foundation. In Jungian terms, this is the phase where you are integrating the shadow. When you are compelled to sit in the quiet of a hard season, you are forced to confront the parts of yourself you have spent a lifetime avoiding. Your capacity for failure, your most deeply rooted fears, your suppressed desires. This confrontation is what makes you load-bearing. A person who has faced their own darkness is far more grounded than one who has only known the light. Because the one who has navigated the abyss no longer fears the shadows. They have developed a psychic density that cannot be disturbed. This is why your transition is requiring so much time. Not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are being prepared for a substantial life. Not substantial in the sense of burden, but in the sense of depth and meaning. Jung cautioned against the pure eternus, the eternal child who desires the rewards of life without the weight of responsibility. The hardest season is the remedy for the eternal child. It is the initiation into the sage, the king, the queen archetype, the process of becoming someone who can hold power, influence, or profound love without being corrupted or crushed by it. Have you noticed that your threshold for difficulty has shifted? Circumstances that would have sent you spiraling 3 years ago now barely register on your awareness. That is not because the world became gentler. It is because you became more load-bearing. You have survived the pressure of the intermediate state. You have been tempered like steel. This silence is also where soul ripening takes place. Jung believed the most significant changes in a human being do not arise through the force of the ego, but through the ripening of the self. You cannot compel a fruit to ripen ahead of its time. If you exit the cocoon before your wings have hardened, you will not be able to fly. The silence is the time required for your new identity to solidify. The chemical reaction unfolding in the dark. When the hardest season finally concludes, you will step into the world carrying a presence you did not possess before. People will sense it. They will not merely observe your success. They will feel your gravity. They will perceive that you are someone who has been through the fire and did not melt. You were forged. Stop treating the waiting as a detour. The waiting is the work. Every day you remain in the silence without collapsing. Every day you choose to trust the process, even when the finish line is invisible. You are adding another layer of strength to your interior pillars. As you approach the threshold of this season's end, you will encounter something rarely discussed in conventional self-help, but foundational to Jung's depth psychology. It is the sensation of becoming a ghost. You might wake one morning and look at your surroundings, your kitchen, your routines, the person sitting across from you, and realize that while everything appears unchanged, the charge has evaporated. It feels as though you are observing your life through a veil of thin grey silk. You are physically present, but your soul seems to have already moved to a location that has not yet been built. Jung described this as the liminal state, the space between no longer and not yet. This is the ghostly transition. It is the most disorienting part of the entire passage because it resembles a loss of vitality. You may worry that you have gone numb, that you have become depressed, or that you have lost your spark. But from a Jungian perspective, this detachment is a sign of profound progress. It means you have successfully withdrawn your psychic energy from the old structures of your life. The reason the world feels thin or spectral is that you are no longer projecting your identity onto it. Think of your life as a theatrical production that has been running for years. You have played the central role. You know every line, but the production has reached its final act. The curtains are beginning to close, and you are standing in the wings, partially out of your costume, watching the stage hands rearrange the set. The ghostly sensation arises from being half in and half out. You can still see the old world, but you no longer believe in the drama. In this space, the ego undergoes a temporary dissolution. The old version of you, the one who struggled through the hardest season, is receding. But the new version has not yet fully materialized in the physical world. For a brief haunting interval, you are neither here nor there. You are a bridge between two lives. This phase is difficult to remain in because it is fundamentally solitary. When you are in the heat of the struggle, people could see your pain and offer support. But in the ghostly transition, there is nothing visible. To the outside world, you appear to have made it through. They expect you to feel restored, to be back to normal. But you do not feel normal. You feel like a traveler from a distant place passing through your own living room. You have become unreadable, even to yourself. You may find yourself moving through your days in a state of calm, detached observation. You watch yourself speak, you watch yourself work, you watch yourself navigate the world, but You sense a composed distance from all of it. Jung believed this was the emergence of the transcendent function, the part of your psyche that rises above the conflict of opposites. You are no longer inside the storm. You are the sky that holds the storm. The world has not yet caught up to your internal shift. There is always a delay between a psychological death and a physical rebirth. Your interior landscape has already been reorganized. The tectonic plates of your soul have already moved. But on the surface, the old structures still stand. You are inhabiting the remnants of your old life, while the new one is being drafted in the unconscious. The peril here is that you will attempt to reanimate the ghost. You will feel so unsettled by the emptiness that you try to force yourself back into the old story. Picking a conflict, accepting a project you do not care about, restoring a relationship that has already completed its purpose, simply to feel solid again. But you must resist. Being a ghost is a sacred state, a period of psychic fasting. This absence of solidity is what allows the emerging version of you to take shape without the concrete of your past constraining it. If you feel like a ghost today, take a slow breath and understand the world feels unreal because you are becoming more real than the world. The thinning of your reality is the thinning of your prison walls. You are standing in the doorway and the fog you see is simply the mist of a new morning. One of the most agonizing reasons it still feels like you are trapped in your hardest season, even when the worst is behind you, is that you are holding an old scorecard up to a game that has entirely changed. In the Jungian journey, the first half of life is governed by the ego, accumulation, achievement, social standing, fulfilling external expectations. Most people enter their hardest season precisely because that scorecard has failed them. Yet, as you stand at the exit, you are likely still measuring yourself by those old metrics. You look at your life and think, I am not where I should be. You feel like a failure because you are measuring a spiritual transformation with a material ruler. The scorecard is dead, and its death is your liberation. The psyche does not care about your financial position or your professional title the way your ego does. It cares about wholeness. It cares about whether you are becoming a genuine human being, integrated, conscious, and authentic. The hardest season was a hostile takeover by the self, arriving to incinerate the old scorecard because it was keeping you diminished. It was trapping you inside a version of success that did not actually belong to you. The reason you sense failure right now is not because you failed. It is because you are transitioning between two entirely different value systems. You are moving from a life of quantity to a life of quality. Your new scorecard does not track output. It tracks depth. A victory now looks like honesty with yourself when no one is watching. The ability to decline something that depletes your spirit even when it looks good on paper. The space you have created for your own silence. The degree to which you trust your own instincts over the consensus of others. Your capacity to sit with discomfort without reaching for numbness. These are the metrics of individuation. To the outside world, they may appear as nothing. To a culture fixated on performance, they resemble stagnation. But in the architecture of the soul, they are everything. They are the load-bearing pillars. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. To accept yourself is to accept that the version of you winning by the old rules, had to dissolve so that the human being could emerge. If you feel behind, ask yourself behind whom. If you feel like you failed, ask yourself by whose standards. When you stop measuring your progress by the metrics of a self that no longer exists, the hardest season officially ends. The exit is not a physical doorway. It is a psychological one. The moment you stop apologizing for the fact that your life no longer resembles the original plan, you are constructing a life sized for the soul. You are not losing the game. You are finally playing the one you were born for. As you stand at this threshold, you are waiting for a signal, a map, a 5-year plan, a clear direction to settle the turbulence of recent years. You believe that once you have the blueprint, the uncertainty will dissolve and the real life will begin. But here is the difficult Jungian truth. The uncertainty is not the obstacle to your new life. The uncertainty is the blueprint. In alchemy, which Jung studied deeply to illuminate the workings of the psyche, there is a concept called the prima materia, the first matter. It was described as something chaotic, formless, and often repulsive to the eye. Yet the alchemist believed that without this disordered mass, gold could never be created. You cannot have genuine transformation without a period of profound not knowing. If you had a clear plan right now, you would simply be reconstructing your old life with new materials, following the same internal architecture that brought you into the hard season in the first place. When you do not know what comes next, you are finally in a state of pure potentiality. Jung called this the creative waiting, the ability to remain in the tension of the unknown without reaching for a premature resolution. The ego experiences uncertainty as a threat to survival. It wants to predict, control, and categorize. But the soul flourishes in the in-between. The soul knows that the most essential parts of your future are things you have not yet imagined. If you could see the entire path from here, it would not be your path. It would be a road someone else already paved. Your absence of vision right now is actually evidence of your psychological integrity. You are refusing to deceive yourself. You are declining to settle for a sufficient plan just to quiet the anxiety. You are holding out for the truth. Jung observed that the psyche carries an inner directional sense. Just as a seed knows how to become a tree without any manual or instruction, your psyche knows how to move toward its own wholeness. But it does not speak the language of blueprints and deadlines. It speaks the language of symbols, synchronicities, and gut instincts. When you stop treating uncertainty as a malfunction, your relationship with your life transforms. You stop searching for a map and start watching for markers. A marker is not a 10-step plan. It is a sudden flash of genuine interest in a new direction, a dream that leaves a specific emotion in the morning, a conversation that feels alive in a way your old life no longer did. The hardest season concludes when you make peace with the fog. There is a deep psychological relief that arrives when you say, I do not know precisely where I am going, but I know I am moving in the right direction because I am no longer where I do not belong. That recognition is the exit. Trust the fog. Trust the silence. Trust the fact that you have had the courage to remain in the unknown without dismantling yourself just to escape it. That courage is not small. Most people cannot do it. This uncertainty is the prima materia of your genius. You are not lost. you are being formed, one of the deepest fears people carry through a hard season is the fear of waste. You look at the months consumed by confusion, the relationships that dissolved, the career paths that led to sealed doors, and feel the weight of regret pressing in. You feel as though you have taken a massive detour away from your real life. But in the Jungian understanding of the soul, there is no such thing as a detour. There is only the long spiraling road of circumambulation, the soul circling its center, drawing closer with each revolution. Jung did not see this as inefficiency. He saw it as the natural geometry of psychological growth. The spiral does not retrace the same ground, even when it looks like it does from the outside. Each revolution happens at a deeper level than the one before. Every time you have returned to a familiar wound, a familiar pattern, a familiar question, you were not going backward. You were circling inward, moving closer to the essential truth at the center of your own life. And as you exit this season, you are approaching a moment of retroactive meaning. There will come a day, often in a quiet, unremarkable instant, when this entire period of your life will suddenly make sense. The sealed doors will reveal themselves as guards, keeping you from entering rooms that were never yours. The time that felt lost will be recognized as the duration required for your old identity to dissolve so the new one would not be contaminated by what came before. This is the moment where the confusion of your struggle becomes the defining myth of your life. Think of a puzzle assembled in the dark. While you are in the middle of it, the individual pieces with jagged edges and strange colors make no sense together. They look like disorder. It is only when the final pieces click into place that the image reveals itself. Your life is placing those final pieces right now. The hardest season was the period during which you were gathering the fragments that did not seem to fit anywhere. Jung called this the teleological view of the psyche, looking not only backward to trace causes, but forward to ask, what is this pain attempting to create? When you examine your struggle through a teleological lens, the story shifts entirely. You are not simply someone who suffered. You are someone who was initiated. The isolation was not abandonment. It was the space required to finally hear your own voice. The professional failure was not a lack of ability. It was the rejection of a life too small for your soul. The confusion was not a malfunction. It was the cloud of unknowing that precedes every significant spiritual breakthrough. In this phase, you begin to encounter what Jung called synchronicity, those meaningful intersections that seem to confirm you are on the right track. You meet the right person at the precise moment. You discover a book that answers a question you have carried for years. You perceive a pattern in your life you were previously too close to notice. These are not accidents. They are the psyche showing you that the apparent disorder was always a map. If this part of your journey reaches something deep within you, if you feel even quietly that what seemed like waste is beginning to reveal its meaning, know that you are standing on the threshold. You did not fail at your old life. You simply grew beyond it. The fire felt like destruction, but it was a refiner's fire, burning away what was never truly yours, so that the gold of your genuine character could emerge. One day soon, you will tell the story of this time, and you will not tell it with shame or regret. You will tell it with the quiet authority of someone who descended into the abyss and returned carrying something real. The timing that felt so wrong, the years that seemed lost will be revealed as the precise gestation period you're becoming required. You are not behind. You are underground. And the version of you about to break the surface is more resilient, more compassionate, and more whole than the version that went in. Nothing was wasted. Every moment of doubt, every hour of silence, every invisible battle was a thread in the tapestry. And very soon you are going to see the entire picture. There is one final step required to fully exit the hardest season of your life, and it may be the most important one, the act of witnessing. Carl Jung believed that for transformation to be integrated, for it to hold, it must be acknowledged by the conscious mind. It cannot remain a vague sensation in the body. It must be named. It must be spoken aloud. In ancient traditions, this was the naming ceremony. In the journey of the soul, this is the moment you cease being a victim of your circumstances and become the witness of your own evolution. When you are inside a hard season, you feel invisible. Your effort unfolds in a space where no one can fully see it. But as you exit, you have the opportunity to transform that invisibility into sovereignty by standing in the truth of your experience and refusing to conceal the evidence of your growth. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Part of becoming who you truly are is honoring the journey it took to arrive here. Looking at the fire you walked through and saying, "I was there. It was hard, and I am different." This witnessing is not self-pity. It is not a performance of pain for sympathy. It is something far more dignified than that. It is the conscious acknowledgement that you were present for one of the most demanding passages a human soul can navigate, and you did not abandon yourself in the middle of it. You stayed even when you felt empty, even when you felt invisible, even when the version of you that used to have all the answers went completely silent. You stayed. That is not weakness. That is one of the rarest forms of courage a person can embody. The witnessing is simply the moment you finally let yourself know that you know it. I want to invite you into a collective act of witnessing right now. When we name our in-between states openly, we dissolve the ego's hold of shame. We recognize that what felt like stagnation was a universal human initiation. By naming your phase, you offer a lantern to the person 3 steps behind you in the fog. Take a moment, not for what sounds successful, not for what looks admirable from the outside. Look into your own interior and name the phase you are inhabiting today. Are you in the refining fire, the load-bearing silence, the ghostly transition? Name it, own it. Because the moment you do, something shifts in your psyche. You are no longer lost inside the fog. You are the one observing it. You are moving from the object of your life to the subject. You are reclaiming your place at the center of your own story. The version of you that entered this season would not recognize the one who is about to walk out. Not because you became someone else, because for the first time in a very long time, you stopped abandoning who you were becoming. You no longer need the old scorecard. You no longer need everyone to understand you. You no longer need the road ahead to be completely visible before you take the next step. The hardest season of your life did not leave you empty. It left you deeper. And maybe that is why the exit is so quiet. There is no announcement, no dramatic moment. One day, you simply realize the weight you have been carrying no longer belongs to you, and you walk forward without picking it back up. Thank you for being part of this journey with Hidden Becoming. This channel exists as a sanctuary for those navigating the deeper currents of the psyche. If this exploration of the intermediate state spoke to something real in you today, please subscribe and share this with someone who is still somewhere in their own fog. We are all walking each other home, one insight at a time. Trust the timing of your soul. Your new life is already forming.